What'd I miss, everybody? Am I here? Uh-oh. Might be the only person here. Oh no, here we go. Sorry I'm late, everyone. Trying to get a sense of who is here. 7 attendees. Okay, look at this. Pretty good crew. Okay. Well, sorry for the delay. I will add 2 minutes to this. I just had to hop off a meeting. Welcome everyone. This is Renew Missouri's most recent series in its CLE webinars. We're going to be doing a transmission update. Current and future state of electrical transmission facilities presented by Renew Missouri. I did this presentation back in the summer. We have attempted to update it. If you have any questions, please let me know as we go along. You can write those comments in the quotes. Abby, who is producing this, make sure the comments are not disabled and that people can go along. Or you can save it to the end, whatever you want to do. If you are a Missouri attorney, this is good for 1 hour of CLE credit. So we hope that if you need a certificate or you need the ID for the program, we will get that to you as well. So let's go ahead and get started with the next slide. Yeah, who am I? Well, this is a pretty small group, so I'm pretty sure you all know who I am. I'm James Owen. I'm the executive director of Renew Missouri. I've been doing this job since 2017, almost 8 years, which is almost impossible to believe. But it's something that I'm very proud of the work we do here. I'm very excited about the work we do here. Um, I will note that transmission advocacy is something that we have recently started getting more and more involved and engaged in, largely for the most part in supporting and trying to promote a strong transmission grid, promoting projects, promoting efforts by our utility companies to build that, independent companies building it, et cetera, et cetera. So that's me. Now let's talk a little bit about our group. Next slide, please. Yeah, so again, Renew Missouri, who are we? We've been around since 2006. We advanced renewable energy and energy efficiency policy in the state of Missouri. We have worked on legislation, we have worked on ballot initiatives, local ordinances, and we're also involved and engaged at the Public Service Commission, which is the regulators that oversee investor-owned utilities that provide electric, gas, and water services throughout the state. That's one of the big things that we do. We have started doing some more transmission work at that level. We also are engaged with transmission work with some of the regional organizations that our utilities in Missouri are members of, such as MISO on the eastern side of the state and Southwest Power Pool on the western side of the state. That is something that we are doing. And Nicole Mers, who is on this webinar as well, she is our point person on that. So I might ask her to chime in in regards to any questions that you may have or anything I need assistance with. So let's see here. I want to bring up something really quick because I think it's going to be relevant to our next slide. Because I want to talk a little bit about yeah, let's just go to the next slide. Okay, so yes, this is what I said we were going to talk about, transmission update. Next slide. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about right of first refusal. I think it says right of refusal up here. That should be right of first refusal. Actually, maybe they call it right of refusal in some places. I don't know, but anyway, that was an oversight. Right of first refusal. This is an issue that has been brought up in front of the Missouri legislature for the past two sessions. We are currently in the 2025 legislative session. It is very utility heavy. We have a lot of utility legislation that's been filed. I think the last time I checked, there's about 50 bills that we are tracking, either supporting or opposing or simply just watching. Accounting procedures that are before the Public Service Commission, different types of procedures that can be allowed, that would allow for rate recovery and kind of different ways of how rate recovery would work. Another piece of legislation that is before the legislature right now is the idea of right of first refusal. And so essentially what that is because we have these regional transmission organizations, we are building transmission lines across the state. This idea would be that the law that any regulators or any bodies that had to approve of those projects would have to give priority to incumbent utilities that wanted to build transmission lines. That would be as opposed to independent third parties who also can contract to do transmission lines. But this would say that basically there's a priority to the incumbent utilities. That would include the investor-owned utilities. That would include the Associated Electric. That would include like the generation and transmission organizations under Associated Electric. And I guess it would include the municipal utilities as well. I can't think of any specific transmission lines that they own. I know they co-own and they contribute to some, but that certainly is those certainly would be factored in as well. That legislation has not received any kind of that has not received any kind of hearing yet before the Public Service Commission, but there are other states who have passed this. We have a kind of a map there that shows the current state of jurisdictions that have right of first refusal laws on the books, with a note about the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Texas that declared that incumbent utilities that have been given this right, could be. I mean, that is essentially setting up a Commerce Clause violation by discriminating against interstate commerce. So the Western District of Texas ruled in favor of those developers who had been challenging that. Same with the Iowa District Court. And so that's kind of, let's see. I just see we just had a note here. Apologies if our internet is unstable. It has been tricky today. I don't know what's going on. I think we've paid our bill. So we should not have any trouble with that. But that is kind of an update on the right of first refusal, but I was kind of wanted to get that update out of the way. Next slide, please. Thank you. Some of the projects that we are watching that we're interested in. There's the Grain Belt Express. A lot of you on this call are very familiar with the Grain Belt Express. It's an 800-mile line that would bring wind power from Kansas to the MISO region. That would go through Kansas, Missouri, Illinois, and parts of Indiana. It's owned by Invenergy. It now includes a 36-mile Tiger Connector line from Grain Belt Express into Callaway County. That's in mid-Missouri. That had received approval by the Public Service Commission in the fall of 2023, even though the initial CCN, or the Certificate for Convenience and Necessity for that particular project, was approved in 2019 and was affirmed by not only the Western District Court of Appeals, but also the Missouri Supreme Court ruled in favor of Invenergy, allowing them to be declared a utility and allowing them to be able to exert eminent domain to build this particular transmission line. The amendment that was approved by the Public Service Commission last fall has, I believe, fully gone through the state appellate process. The Western District just recently affirmed the decision by the Public Service Commission. I believe they did that in September or October. And the Missouri Supreme Court just refused to take that challenge and reconsider it. The Missouri Supreme Court, which gets discretion on which cases they can hear, chose not to exercise that discretion with this new case. So for all practical purposes at the state level, the Grain Belt Express is settled. There is currently a dispute at FERC. The Federal Energy Regulatory Commission over modeling and planning with MISO. Invenergy is asking for Grain Belt Express to be considered as part of its long-term planning. MISO has refused to recognize it. And I don't know where the status of that is. I don't know if Nicole can go off mute and answer that, or she can just put that into the chat as far as like what's going on with that case. But there's also the Northern Missouri Grid Transformation Project. That is included in MISO's long range transmission planning, the LRTP. Oh wait, there's a question here. Let me see what this is. Does FERC have open seats that would be filled by President Trump? Oh, that is a good question. Let's see. What is the composition of FERC right now? Let me see if I can find that. FERC. Sorry, I don't mean to derail everything. I'm just kind of FERC.
While you're doing that, James, I can read Nicole's comment. She sent something in the chat. She said, MISO and Invenergy are in discussions currently about the planning process, and the complaint has been held in, oh my gosh, I cannot pronounce that. I'm not going to attempt it.
Oh, let me see. Let me see if I can see it. Hold on a second. Abeyance. Abeyance. Is that the word you're having trouble with, Nicole?
That was me.
No,
yes,
Abby,
I've
sorry.
never seen that word before. That's my bad.
It's been held in abeyance. Right, okay. Okay, well, thanks for that update, Nicole. And Abby, sorry I called you Nicole. But Steve, to answer your question, I don't see any vacancies on the FERC website. I see that it looks like there is the chair, Mark Christie, Commissioners Willie L. Phillips, Commissioner David Rosner, Commissioner Lindsay SC, and Commissioner Judy W. Chang. So it appears that there are 5 commissioners, including the chair. I think that is I think that's full. So I don't think there's any openings. Now they are on certain terms. President Donald Trump is here for another 4 years. I imagine he will have a chance to fill some of those positions during the remainder of his tenure. So
I think we do have on one of the slides an update on some of the positions that Trump has filled.
Oh yes. Oh well, fabulous. Okay. Good. It's good to know. I should have known that. So anyway, so getting back to the Northern Missouri Grid Transformation Project, LRTP, those are 3 separate projects to be completed by ATXI, which is a subsidiary of, I think, Ameren, Illinois. Ameren, we'll say Ameren, generally speaking, who has that has components in Missouri as well as Illinois. I know in Illinois they are a wires only utility over there because of the structure of the market there. This is essentially 96 miles of new transmission and new upgraded substations in northern Missouri. And it is before the Public Service Commission currently. Its cases EA 2024-0302 and EA 2025-0087. Established, they are expected to be in service in 2028. I should have noted with Grain Belt Express, that is expected to be established in 2030. They are the Northern Missouri Grid Transformation Project. I mean, Grain Belt is currently not before regulators. The two cases that are before the Public Service Commission are cases that Renew Missouri is engaged and active in. We are supportive of those projects, and I believe, and again, Nicole can correct me if I'm wrong on this, and I hope she does, that it seems like there are kind of some minimal disputes in regards to certain concerns by certain landowners that have been expressed by the Public Service Commission staff. The Public Service Commission staff is, one of the parties that is involved with that case as well. I believe that Ameren is in the process of getting those issues resolved, and so it's certainly Renew Missouri's hope that project will be able to be approved by the Public Service Commission without having to do any other kind of contested case. So Nicole, any thoughts on this? I don't know. Nicole might not be. Let me see if I can allow her to talk. Can you talk, Nicole?
Yeah, hi folks. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
You can hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what's going on with those cases?
Yeah,
Just ask you.
the current status is the staff of the Missouri Public Service Commission did have their recommendation out in the EA 224-0302 case that had approval, but based on some conditions, including some landowner conditions that they wanted to see. One of those was holding an additional local public hearing. That has been done. Right now, I think parties are just in the process of working through if there can be any agreement on those conditions or modifications of them, and hopefully it gets resolved without a hearing. The EA 225-0087 case has just kicked off, so there's no recommendation or procedural schedule in that case yet to see what folks are planning on it, but so far none of the landowner groups have intervened, so might be a relatively uncontentious case, but hopefully I've not just jinxed us.
Hopefully not. Well, thanks for that, Nicole. I appreciate it. I'm going to put you back on mute. But that's very helpful. Next slide. Okay, federal updates. Actually, before we get into this, one thing I wanted to bring up, and I want to bring this up because there was a meeting on January 23rd before the Public Service Commission where folks from the Southwest Power Pool, MISO, Associated Electric, which is the power supplier for the rural electric cooperatives, who they are not members of either one of those transmission groups. They all met in front of the Public Service Commission. We didn't have a slide on this just because we just only got this written up just a few days ago. But they did. I did before we got into kind of any kind of the updates on FERC. I kind of want to talk a little bit about these reports. There was a note on developments impacting renewable energy resource adequacy and reliability. MISO reported tightening reserve margins and has implemented a new seasonal construct, shifting peak demand considerations from summer to winter. FERC has approved a reliability-based demand curve for planning and resource auctions set to go into effect this year, 2025. There were efforts to make accreditation reforms that were originally planned for 2028 and 2029, and those are being fast-tracked for use in integrated resource planning by load-serving entities and state commissions. Presumably, that includes the Public Service Commission here in Missouri. MISO is reevaluating the 1 day and 10 years reliability standard and exploring new metrics that may better measure the duration and magnitude of reliability risks alongside frequency. That was that update. They also had an update on interconnection queue status and reforms. MISO's interconnection queue faces significant delays due to an influx of project submissions driven by the IRA. They had over 1,500 projects representing 300 gigawatts of capacity that are currently in line to be interconnected, with study cycles taking 3 to 4 years to complete. Because of this, MISO is implementing queue reforms, including automation, smaller study batches and penalties for delays, as well as stricter criteria for project readiness. MISO has also introduced a commercial operation date tracker to provide greater transparency regarding project timelines and expected service dates by fuel type and location. And then there was this update by SPP in regards to developments in regional planning. SPP noted they are also facing challenges with its interconnection queue and plans to implement its version of the Enhanced Resource Adequacy Surplus by Q4 of this year. Now, we'll get into a little bit of what ERIS is here in a bit. While they think time savings are expected to be minimal, the reform also aims to improve the reliability and resource adequacy of projects entering the system. In that vein, SPP, MISO, AECI, Evergy, and Ameren stated they are in the early planning stages of a new 345 kilovolt transmission line that will stretch across Missouri, beginning in Kansas City and ending on the east side of Missouri. The project aims to address seams issues. Just so you all know, when we talk about seams, we're talking about the issue with being able to have kind of consistent transmission projects and kind of cooperation between organizations like this. Missouri is particularly challenging in regards to the issue of seams, and I want to make sure that's SEAMS because there's another seam acronym that goes on with transmission and energy policy work at the federal level. It's particularly challenging here because we do not only have two markets, SPP and MISO, but we also have AECI, which is in neither. So there's basically 3 different kind of maps working within the state of Missouri that all have to coordinate with each other, and they're trying to do a better job of that. So anyway, there's this project that's been proposed that they've announced. We don't know much else about it, but it does have the intention of addressing that issue, as well as concerns regarding cost distribution, as the lines would allocate expenses across all RTO members. I'm assuming that's both MISO and SPP. In regards to ERIS, that was mentioned in the SPP developments, the proposed ERIS reforms include a shift in interconnection queue management. Only projects explicitly tied to resource adequacy needs will be granted to the expedited and reformed queue process, effectively giving incumbent utilities the right of first refusal advantage, prioritizing utility-owned projects over those led by independent developers. Prioritization is, from our perspective, worrisome in the event that it might have an impact on market competition. These reforms will also include stricter criteria for projects, which aims to reduce speculative projects, but again, that would favor those well-established utilities with the resources to meet those requirements quickly. So I just wanted to throw that in before we moved on. So on to federal updates. We have the Department of Energy programs. And I should probably also just have this as a disclaimer. There's a lot of talk in the news and among energy policy circles about projects being put on hold, funding being put on hold, questions about like what's going to be moving forward that's being issued by the federal government versus what is not. Renew Missouri does not have any special insight or knowledge into this. This is just information that we know is out there, and we know is apparently going to be ongoing. There's the National Interest Electric Transmission Corridors program, that is NITEC, for people who like their abbreviations. In 2023, there was a transmission needs study that revealed geographic regions where lack of adequate transmission harms consumers, and that harm would include high prices and congestion. The NITEC designations were kind of intended to unlock siting, permitting, and financing tools when interregional transmission is a critical need. The Department of Energy solicited stakeholder input for preliminary NITEC designations. One of that included Northern Missouri. And then there was the 10 preliminary designations issued in May of 2024. The final NITECs narrowed down to the following as of today. And again, that could change. The Tribal Energy Access Corridor, enhancing transmission capacity to support tribal energy projects. Again, I just learned yesterday that there is an effort to remove any kind of community benefits or specific targeted community benefits from any projects that are being considered by Department of Energy, by EPA, anything involving infrastructure. So I don't know if that's going to stay or not. And there's the Offshore Wind Integration Corridor, which would be integrating offshore wind energy into the national grid. We are still trying to analyze how the new executive order halting wind energy will affect this. I think one of the questions we have, or the primary question we would have in regards to this is that going, I mean, we know that there's probably not going to be any more offshore wind being developed or built, but I mean, what's going to happen to it that exists there already? There's also the Clean Energy Delivery Corridor that facilitates delivery of clean energy across regions, including the southwestern U.S., as well as the Midwest Plains Corridor that was removed from consideration, and that would have impacted landowners in Kansas, specifically 14 counties there. So can you send missing slide narrative James has outlined? Oh yeah, we'll send some. Yes, in regards to that updated information I had from that SPP and MISO, I will make sure that everyone who signed up for this webinar gets that information. We just got that written up. We did not get a chance to turn that into a slide. Sorry. So we will get that. We will get that to you. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, the DOE programs, coordinated interagency authorizations and permit programs, CITAP. It's a one-stop shop portal to help developers submit and track applications and facilitate communication with the Department of Energy as well as other federal agencies. This will inform federal permitting agencies' authorization decisions and enhance interagency transparency. You can look at that Midwest Plains project that apparently is kind of going to be I guess not proceeding forward. Well, I gotta tell you, I look at that, it looks very much like Grain Belt. It looks very much like that. Its trajectory, but that's something separate, and that's from the Department of Energy again. So waiting to see what's going to happen with all of that. Next slide, please. Thanks. Okay, there's also orders from FERC. Again, these are orders that are outstanding. I don't know if like any kind of new administrative functions are going to let's see, David Bungie just said in the chat, Army Corps of Engineers has also put a pause in place on processing any wetland review and construction permits, and that pause is specific to solar and wind projects. What a surprise! That is the that is the specifics of that particular pause. We can kind of have more of a freewheeling conversation about that sooner than later, as once we get through kind of some of the formal slides that we've got here. So there's order 1920. That addresses cost allocation for transmission projects and establishes proactive planning policies to ensure regional reliability and cost effectiveness. This was the initial processing of planning for this was issued in spring of 2022. Stakeholder comments were solicited in the summer and fall of that same year. The rule became effective 60 days after it was published in the Federal Registry, which happened in last summer. The compliance plans required within 12 months for interregional transmission planning and 10 months for other aspects of the rule. The long-term regional transmission planning cycles must commence no later than 1 year after the compliance filing. I note that the final rule adopted in May of 2024 was on a 2-to-1 party line vote. Chairman Phillips and Clemente said yes. Christie said no. You might notice that the chairs have already shifted on that. Largely because I'm assuming because the party that's in charge has shifted as well. Order 1920 does not mandate transmission development or project selection. FERC does not have the jurisdiction to require transmission to be built. It only responds to imperatives to ensure affordable, reliable power infrastructure via the Federal Power Act of 1920, not to be confused with Order 1920, which upholds existing cost allocation precedent. It does not allow for the allocation of cost to entities that don't benefit. It requires that costs must be roughly commensurate with benefits received. Next slide, please. All right, we're going to continue talking a little bit about Order 1920. It requires grid planners to consider 7 benefits when evaluating proposed facilities. That would include avoided deferred investment in new generation and new transmission, reduced loss of load or reduced PRM. Hey, there's another thing on here. I'm going to ask to unmute Nicole really quick.
Yes.
Nicole, do you know what PRM is?
It's planning reserve margin.
Okay. We should have spelled that out. Okay, sorry.
Yes, I think it's in a later slide, but they probably got shuffled and moved where the acronym isn't as clear. But yes, it's the planning reserve margin.
Okay, thank you for that. Reduced PRM, cost savings, transmission energy losses, mitigation of system disruption during extreme weather, and reduced congestion. This also requires grid planners to engage in comprehensive long-term 20-year planning every 5 years. It's somewhat similar to the long-term planning that we require investor-owned utilities to do at the Public Service Commission. We call that an IRP. Just referred to that earlier in another one of our discussions. Except at the Public Service Commission, it's every 3 years and not every 5. It must use best available data, conducting scenario planning for 3 potential scenarios and consider those 7 benefits that we just went over when evaluating proposed facilities. The order also reforms local transmission planning by requiring transmission providers to evaluate whether new facilities can be right-sized, ergo, using existing right-of-ways, upgrading to lines with greater capacity versus piecemeal in-kind replacements, considering the use of grid-enhancing technologies or GITS. I guess that would be a acronym since it actually spells out a word. It would improve transparency to local stakeholders through process of engagement and information sharing, requiring 3 stakeholder meetings at least 25 days apart. I want to talk a little bit about using existing right-of-ways. This is another aspect that has been added to the right of first refusal legislation that we've seen at the Missouri legislature. Essentially the concept of co-location in situations where an existing easement, an existing right-of-way can already be used for another transmission project. This is something that is preferred by land groups, landowners, farming organizations that have existing and, let's be honest, legitimate concerns about transmission projects being sited over their property. I can tell you from my background as coming from a family farm, Yeah, farmers don't like having these transmission projects put over their property. It is somewhat limiting in what they can do with those fields as far as like how they can, maintain those properties for crop or, or livestock or whatever. But again, they're gonna get compensated for that. And that's, supposed to be factoring in that certain loss of land. But with the co-location, then at the very least, there's not going to have to be the need to put out another line. And that can, and that can be helpful as far as, minimizing the disruption to property owners. I mean, there's some Missouri case law out there that basically says that even if you're adding to an existing line, there's possibility there's going to be additional compensation. I believe that was a case down in South Central Missouri, where a rural electric cooperative was trying to put in some additional lines on a transmission line they had, and the landowners were wanting additional compensation for that extra equipment that was being put there, and the courts agreed with the landowners. So that's kind of I kind of wanted to use it as an opportunity to talk a little bit about the existing right of ways and how that co-location issue is important. And certainly something that even an advocacy group like Renew Missouri, who wants to see responsible transmission projects getting built, wants to see utility companies build those transmission projects, wants to see wants to see these connect to clean energy projects. We want to make sure that we're also doing it in a way that minimizes disruption to the land. Or at the very least, can also provide extra compensation for those landowners. It declines. However, I mean, I know one of the things, the reason why right of first refusal is important at the state level is because FERC has continued to decline federal right of first refusal. That is that counters previous policy. There had been a federal policy that favored incumbent utilities getting the right of first refusal to build these projects. That currently is still in place, that the federal right of first refusal is not there except for right-sized local projects. So they're going to be giving more consideration if you do have these using these existing right of ways or upgrading those lines with greater capacity or using GITs. So that's something to keep in mind. It also requires transmission providers to propose a cost allocation method for long-term regional projects, and that requires coordinating with states to determine the cost allocation method. Another challenge here, which is why this work is so relentlessly tricky, is because you're talking about transmission lines that are getting built over multiple states. It might require multiple state public service commissions to approve it. You have to have this interaction with the RTOs. And then you also have to have this kind of oversight at the federal level. It is very complicated, but then again, the transmission and delivery of power is going to be tricky. It's going to be okay. I'm seeing Jim Lowry's got something here. It's about extra payments. He says that will always depend on the facts. Not sure of the exact case to which you refer, but if the original easement contemplated the later additions, the landowner was compensated for them when the easement was obtained. No additional compensation would be due just because the utility did not exercise the full extent of its rights initially. Okay, this case, and I can go find the appellate number for that. Jim's right. It was not. It was for something new that was going to go on that easement. It wasn't something that was originally contemplated by the easement. That's exactly right. So I'll get that. I'll get that as well. So that's good. That's a good point to make. Next slide. Please. There we go.
I do
More
want to,
Huh?
sorry, I do want to say real quick, we have 9 minutes left, and including this slide, we have 4 slides left.
I will get through them. I'm just, but yeah, I am. I'll get through them. Thank you, Abby. Abby Dickinson doing a great job producing our webinar today. Order 1920A. Big picture, FERC issues Order 1920A, which modifies the version of the original order to enhance state regulators' participation in transmission planning process. The updated order included the following provisions: must incorporate state laws, policies, and regulations in the planning processes. It must require transmission providers to include any ex ante cost allocation methods. We should have that. We should have that italicized, that ex ante cost allocation methods, or state agreement processes agreed upon by relevant state entities in their compliance filings. This is true even if transmission providers do not propose those methods. There must be permit extensions of engagement periods by up to 6 months. Transmission providers must consult with relevant state entities before amending their long-term regional transmission cost allocation methods or state agreement processes. The transmission providers may create additional scenarios to provide states with information useful about designing cost allocation methods. That would have to be outside of the obligated 3 scenarios. And there would have to be adjustments to the commencement of the first long-term regional training plan. Let me say that again. There must be adjustments to the commencement of the first long-term regional transmission planning cycle to no later than 2 years from the initial compliance filing date. So additional requirements for these transmission projects to be following this order and to make it where they have to have more input from the states and to make sure state regulators are more engaged with that. Again, it is very important that these transmission projects are vetted at the state and federal level. You know, I mean, I think one of the concerns that you hear from activists when they talk about transmission, if they want transmission to move forward, that it takes a long time. It's very slow. But again, you're dealing with multiple government entities at multiple different levels. And that's just one of those things that, hey, it's going to take a long time to get through there, not to mention all of the intricacies that go along with a project like this. They're really expensive. There's a lot of equipment. There's a lot of cost variances that go along with this. Certainly anyone engaging in transmission construction and planning, it's not it's not easy, it's not cheap. So that's all things to keep in mind as well. Next slide. And there's also the new orders at FERC, Order 1977, amends environmental permitting for new transmission. This was unanimously adopted by FERC in May of 2024 and effective 60 days after publication in the Federal Register. Makes FERC the backstop siting authority for transmissions in the NITEX. Developers may apply to FERC for approval of certain projects after local state authorities deny projects if it is located in one of these NITEX, which we talked about earlier. Requires transmission providers to engage with landowners as well as dealing with environmental justice, tribal, local communities early in the project planning. One thing I can tell you is the environmental justice aspect of that is probably almost certainly going to be stricken from this with the new efforts that are being done at the federal agencies in kind of trying to get rid of anything involving some of that environmental justice language that was a part of the infrastructure bill or with the Inflation Reduction Act. So I would not expect that to survive for any extended period of time. You know, that could include these other requirements that adds 3 new resource reports on impacts, tribal, environmental justice communities, as well as air quality and environmental noise impacts. The newest order adds new requirements for applicants' engagement plans to outreach to Native American tribes. And if the project requires a right-of-way on tribal land, it must include working with tribal landowners. You know, I don't, you know, that all might survive. The protections, the legal protections for indigenous and tribal lands is pretty well settled. And actually, like, I think has like some pretty strong proponents at the U.S. Supreme Court, including Judge Gorsuch. who is very adamant about tribal protections, if you've read some of his decisions. So those might actually still remain. I guess it's still too early to tell. But you can see there's some of the proposed NITEX again. Jurisdictional authority grounded in FPA sections 216, and that is aligned with that IIJA. Nicole, what you know what the FPA is? You know what that is, Nicole? Let me get you back on here. I want to make sure that we're federal power. Oh, thanks, Jim. Jim Lowry got it.
Yeah, he did. Sorry, I was trying to hit unmute. But
Okay.
yeah. Yeah.
I got
Thanks,
it. Okay.
Jim,
Well,
for the assist.
yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. Your check's in the mail. Let's see. Okay, next slide, please. What? Yeah. My undying gratitude is what you win. So more updates and changes afoot. Again, this is all kind of not contemplating anything that might be coming sooner than later. There is the implementations of Order 2222. That is the regional transmission organizations and the ISOs making slow progress to improve market access for distributive energy resources, including DER aggregators. That is an issue that also gets dealt with at the State Public Service Commission. But that is, we are still waiting on when that is going to be put into place. Southwest Power Pool anticipates implementation sometime between 2027 and 2029, which would be 2 to 4 years after the initial proposal in 2025. MISO anticipates that implementation in 2029 and 2030. So we've still got a while. We've still got a couple of years, but as we know, time flies when you're having fun. So we'll see. We'll see when all that gets entered in. Oh, look. Here is this information about what the Trump administration is doing. We saved it for the end. I wish I had known that instead of spending 2 or 3 minutes searching around for that like an idiot. Trump administration has named new FERC appointees. That includes naming Mark Christie as the chair and Carlos Clay as the FERC deputy secretary. So those are new FERC appointees that have only just recently happened. We also have updates. Total Energies is to pay $5 million to settle FERC natural gas manipulation case, and also reinstated certificate for Williams Company's Transcontinental Gas Pipeline. That is $1 billion regional energy access expansion aims to meet growing gas demand in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Maryland. One of the things that we are hearing a lot about, not only at the federal level, but at the state level, is this increased demand for gas generation. It is certainly something that you're hearing a lot from regional transmission organizations, as well as ISOs out there, the independent system operators, and certainly the utilities that are members of those markets are trying to comply with those requests and with those guidelines. And so you're seeing a lot more gas cases at the Public Service Commission right now. We just had a gas plant case before the Public Service Commission with Ameren that was settled in October of 2024. We've got a couple of natural gas CCNs before the Public Service Commission right now with Evergy on the western side of the state for plants they're wanting to build in Kansas, but that will have use in Missouri. So you're just seeing a lot more of that, and that is also the basis of a lot of the legislation that you're seeing at the in the Missouri Capitol that is trying to put an emphasis on rate recovery in the construction of those gas plants. All right, next. Okay, going on with the RTOs and ISOs. And I know I've only got 2 more minutes, so I'm going to try to. I'm sorry, we might not have a lot of time to deal with questions. If you have questions, you can email them to me, james@renewmo.org. Yeah, it's for CLEs, it's a therapist hour, so it's only 50 minutes. Planning reserve margin requirements, PRMRs require RTOs and ISOs to maintain reserve capacity to meet projected demand over a given time period. In November, FERC approved a summer PRM of 16% and a winter PRM of 36% for Southwest Power Pool. Changes to effective load carrying capability, ELCC determination, and performance-based accreditation. ELCC is the amount load can increase when generators are added while maintaining system reliability. That performance-based accreditation allocates accreditation according to historic projected generator performance. And the Southwest Power Pool and environmental groups and disputes at FERC over proposed ELCC and PBA methodology. So what's next? Oh, we don't have time for questions. But I do like that picture of that beef cow in front of the wind farms. If you want any information from us, that's where you find us. Want to thank you all again for joining. Like, again, if you need information to get your CLE credit, please email me at james@renewmo.org. I will get that taken care of for you. We hope that we will see you again soon when we do another one of these webinars. Jim, thank you. Thank you all for attending. And yeah, we'll see you soon. Take care. Bye.